Tonight, when the sun sets, you'll flip a switch. The room will fill with light, and you won't give it a second thought. But for 99.9% of human history, that switch simply didn't exist. Once the sun dropped, the world went black. You wouldn't be able to see your own hand in front of your face. Modern humans are basically the only ones who never lived this. For more than 300,000 years, every single ancestor you have spent close to half their life in near complete darkness. For most of that time, they didn't even have candles, just a black sky, scattered stars, and whatever flame they managed to keep burning. So what were they doing during all those dark hours? The answer reshapes everything we assume about sleep, storytelling, and what it means to be human. Let's start with fire, because without it, none of this happens. The oldest confirmed evidence of humans controlling fire comes from Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, dating back roughly 1 million years. But fire didn't just provide warmth, it rebuilt the entire structure of the human day. Before fire existed, our ancestors behaved like any other primate. Once darkness fell, you climbed into a tree or tucked yourself into shelter and you didn't move. Moving after dark meant risking your life. Human eyes are weak in low light compared to the predators hunting us: leopards, hyenas, wolves, creatures built to see clearly at night. Fire flipped that equation instantly. A campfire creates roughly a 30-foot bubble of safety. Predators avoid stepping inside it. Step outside it, and the odds turn against you. This isn't exaggeration. Researchers studying present-day hunter-gatherer communities have documented that those who stray from the fire after dark face a real, measurable spike in the risk of predator attacks, even now. But here's the fascinating part. Fire didn't just keep people alive at night, it handed them something entirely new: extra hours. Consider this. Before fire, a person's productive day ended the moment the sun went down, roughly 12 hours in summer, as little as 8 in winter. Fire added another 2 to 4 usable hours to every single day. Multiply that across thousands of generations, and those borrowed hours reshaped our entire species. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Weissner published research in part the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Over the course of years, she recorded conversations among the Juahoense Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last communities on Earth still living close to humanity's original way of life. What she uncovered was striking. During daylight hours, roughly 80% of conversations were purely practical: hunting plans, which plants were right, logistics, trade, negotiation. Daytime talk was work. But once night fell and the fire was lit, conversation transformed completely. At night, 81% of what people talked about were stories. Tales of faraway people, adventures, myths explaining the scale, origins of the world, jokes that had the whole camp laughing. Weissner's conclusion: firelight conversation is the birthplace of human culture. The campfire functioned as the first theater, the first classroom, the first place of worship. It's where humans first learned to imagine beyond what was directly in front of them, to picture things that didn't yet exist. It's where humanity, as we know it, began. But the night held more than fireside stories. Something else was happening, something science only rediscovered in the past 3 decades. You were never built to sleep the way you sleep tonight. In 2001, historian Roger Ekirch published research that upended sleep science. After 16 years combing through historical archives, he found something almost nobody expected. More than 500 separate references, spanning centuries, turned up across prayer books from the 14th century, court records, diaries, medical texts, everyday letters, even lines within Homer's Odyssey. All of them pointed to the same pattern: first sleep and second sleep. Before industrialization, people didn't sleep straight through the night. They went to bed shortly after sunset, slept roughly 4 hours, then woke. They stayed alert for an hour or two in the dead of night. Then they drifted back to sleep for another 4 hours, until morning. This wasn't a sleep disorder, it was simply normal. This is how humans slept for thousands of years. And what filled that waking window in the middle of the night? Nearly everything. One 16th century French physician even advised couples to conceive during this stretch, believing the results were better. People dropped in on neighbors. They picked apart dreams while they were still vivid. Written accounts describe people simply lying in the dark, thinking. A medical guide from the 1500s claimed the ideal time for study and reflection was during this watch, as it was called. The still hour between first and second sleep, when the mind sat calm and the world outside went quiet. For centuries, historians have been reading these same references, yet kept mistranslating first sleep into something else entirely. because it was almost unthinkable that people had ever slept any other way than we do now. That assumption ran so deep that translators reshaped ancient Greek and medieval Latin texts to match modern expectations. Then, science backed up what the historical record had been saying all along. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Ware, working at the National Institute of Mental Health, ran an experiment. He gathered volunteers and stripped every trace of artificial light from their lives. For a month, they spent 14 hours in darkness each night, roughly what our ancestors experienced before firelight stretched the evening. Within a few weeks, every participant fell into an identical pattern: 4 hours asleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, then 4 more hours of sleep. Nobody instructed them to do this. Nobody hinted at it. It simply emerged, as if some ancient blueprint had been dead, sitting dormant inside them the whole time, buried under generations of artificial lighting. When Ware checked hormone levels during that wakeful stretch, he found something remarkable. Participants entered a state unlike ordinary wakefulness. The brains released elevated prolactin, the same hormone tied to meditation and post-orgasmic calm. They reported feeling tranquil, reflective, almost meditative. It wasn't simply a break in sleep. It was its own distinct state of consciousness, one nearly no modern person ever experiences anymore. So what wiped it out? The cause is simpler than you'd guess: light. In the 1600s, cities started installing street lamps. Paris led the way under Louis XIV, aiming to cut down on crime. London followed shortly after. Night, once a realm of danger and fear, gradually became something people could move through safely. Then, cheaper candles arrived, and gaslighting spread through the 1800s. Then in 1879, Thomas Edison brought the electric bulb to market. Within a single generation, the night that humans had known for 300,000 years vanished completely. Here's a detail most people never hear. The word curfew traces back to the French couvre-feu, literally, cover the fire. In medieval towns, a bell rang each night as a signal for everyone to smother or extinguish their flames. The reason wasn't safety, it was that night was meant to stay dark. Night was for sleep. Night was when you were exposed. For most of history, being outdoors after dark drew suspicion. In plenty of medieval European cities, stepping outside without a lantern after nightfall was against the law. Darkness belonged to criminals and to the supernatural. People feared it in a way that's almost impossible for us to grasp today. And then we defeated it. We drowned it in artificial light. We called it progress. But here's what that progress cost us. The average modern person is exposed to artificial light for 7 to 8 hours after sunset. That light, especially the blue wavelengths pouring from screens, suppresses melatonin, the hormone that governs sleep. Your body can't tell the difference between a light bulb and the sun. When light hits your retina at 11 p.m., your brain reads it as daytime. It pushes back melatonin release. It fractures your sleep. It throws off a circadian rhythm shaped over millions of years of evolution. Researchers have found that people who spend just 1 week camping with zero artificial light see their melatonin cycles shift back by nearly 2 hours. The bodies start releasing it at sunset instead of hours later. That's all it takes for 300,000 years of biological programming to reassert itself. We didn't just shift when we sleep. We erased an entire phase of human consciousness. That calm, reflective window between first and second sleep, the state test subjects described as peaceful, almost meditative, no longer exists for most people. Instead, we get insomnia, and we treat it as a malfunction. But what if it isn't broken at all? What if lying awake at 2 a.m. in the dark isn't your body failing you? What if it's your body remembering exactly what it was built to do? For 300,000 years, your ancestors moved through their nights in a rhythm modern science is only now starting to understand. They gathered around fire and told stories that would go on to build civilizations. They slept in 2 segments with a quiet stretch of reflection tucked between them. They lived surrounded by darkness so complete that the Milky Way wasn't something you had to drive to a national park to find. It was simply the sky above them. And each night, waking in the space between first and second sleep, they lay there in silence, thinking about their lives, their dreams, and the world waiting for them at dawn. We traded all of it for a light switch, and most of us never even noticed it was gone.